So over the past few weeks, I've been caught up with this whole Johnny Depp trial where he's suing his ex-wife for an op-ed piece that she wrote accusing him of sexual violence and domestic violence, and he's suing her for defamation. I, like most people, got really caught up in this whole domestic violence accusation when she first came out with it. And like most people, I believed her. I believed the pictures. I believed her claims against them. And I thought, oh, here goes yet another celebrity that's fallen off the pedestal and has been accused of violence. But after the trial came out and after listening to all the information that came out of the British lawsuit or the trial that he had against another tabloid, I started seeing the evidence mounting against her that she is the true abuser and Johnny Depp was an abuse victim. So I wanted to do this podcast interview to talk about men being victims of domestic violence as well. Welcome to another episode of the Mental Health Break. Hi, I'm Dr. Nafisa Sikandri, a licensed clinical psychologist specializing in anxiety-based disorders. I created the Mental Health Break podcast to give you simple, actionable, step-by-step strategies to help you prioritize your mental health. Mental illness can cost you time and money. Ignoring your symptoms will only make the problems worse. Taking time out of your busy day to dedicate to improving your mental health can lead to long-term health and wellness. In this podcast, each week you'll learn tips, tricks, and proven strategies to help you regain control of your life, all while prioritizing your mental health. If you want to improve your life, regain control of your mental health, and feel empowered, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Today's episode is brought to you by the Transforming Anxiety course, an online, self-paced anxiety course to help you manage and control your anxiety from the comfort, privacy, and convenience of your own home. Learn how to transform your anxiety in just 6 short weeks. Course registration is now open. To learn more, visit transforminganxiety.com/course. I'm so excited to talk to Amy Goodheart, a brilliant costume designer from California who has a few things in common with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. I actually saw Amy talk on a YouTube channel with Andy Signor when she joined in for Popcorn Planet to talk about the Johnny Depp trial. So I wanted her to come in here today and talk to us about not only the trial, but her own personal experience with intimate partner violence. I'm so excited for you to meet her. You know, as a woman, I'm very aware that most women are often shamed and not believed when they accuse powerful men of domestic violence or sexual abuse. But over the past weeks, there's been way too much evidence where it's pointing the finger towards Amber Heard as being the abuser and Johnny Depp as being the victim. So on the one hand, women are often the victims of domestic violence. That is definitely true. But there are also 1 out of 10 men that are victims of domestic violence, but a lot of them don't come out and talk about it due to shame and due to stigma. And we even heard about that she's accusing him of, nobody's going to believe you if you do come out. So I did want to shed light on this because a lot of men to this day still have trouble coming forward and speaking out and are very grateful for Johnny Depp putting his life out in public without fear of losing his dignity or respect, because he's giving voice to these men to finally speak up and talk about domestic violence and being a victim at the hands of a woman as being the perpetrator of violence. Obviously, this needs to stop because men need to feel just as comfortable coming forward and talking about abuse as women do, and neither should be shamed. No one should be shamed for talking about domestic violence and abuse, regardless of gender. And so that's what bothers me so much about this case, that the person's life is ruined by these false allegations, and all a woman has to do now is say, I've been violated, I've been abused, and people's careers are taken down, people's lives are ruined. We need to stop false allegations, because if what she is doing are lies and are in fact lies, she is setting women back. If it's believed that she is perjuring herself with these lies and with these accusations, then it's going to be very difficult for true victims of domestic violence to come forward and actually believe when they are making a claim. So this is why this is such an interesting case to me, and this is why it has so many ramifications on so many levels psychologically for women and men. So this is why I wanted to have this discussion today.
Oh my gosh, it's so nice to see your face in real life.
Nice to see you and talk to you. I'm so glad. I mean, I know you've been inundated with so much over the past couple of weeks. So for you to even make time, I am so honored. So thank
Oh
you.
my gosh, I'm really really happy to talk to you. I've become a new fan of yours, listening to your podcast and everything you do. I mean, the first podcast of yours that I listened to was when I text you. It was the one about anxiety and fear with, I think, your cousin. Woo, that rang a lot of bells for me.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It took a moment, I was like, yep, that's wrong with me. That's wrong with me.
Don't look at it as being wrong with you. And that's not my goal. I mean, it is such a difficult conversation to have, and people don't want to look at it. And that's why I do want to put it out there and normalize it so that we can look at ourselves and say, yeah, I'm dealing with that. Let me fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to talk to you. You're an amazing costume designer. I'm so impressed with what you're doing.
Thank you. That's my profession. Yeah.
And now you've become like the face of this trial because of your connection to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Because
yeah, I mean, it's an interesting, I would say, balance of kind of dealing with the comments, because so many people are like, yeah, Team Johnny and all of this, and you know, as a personally, I'm a experienced, I don't want to say survivor, but I guess survivor of domestic abuse, psychological, emotional, and all different types of abuse. So the reason I got on Andy Signor's show was initially I reached out to him because they were, saying all of these accusations and stuff about where I actually live. And I was speaking out because there was stuff being said in the trial. And like, this trial it's big. Like, Johnny Depp's whole reputation is on the line here. And that's why it's a defamation case. And they were just saying things that weren't accurate. But that's why I spoke up about that. And when you reached out to me, it was really great, because something that I said on, this popular YouTube show, it just keeps getting pushed under the rug when talking about domestic abuse. And so I was really excited to talk to you, because it's like coming out of this fear of speaking about same gender relationships, because it's just been brushed over. And especially with the deposition of Dr. Hughes, which was speaking as a witness on Amber Heard's behalf. And that's kind of why I was like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm not scared anymore. So that's why.
It takes a lot of guts, like you said. I mean, yes, the whole defamation thing is very interesting to watch. But like you said, there's a lot of people getting triggered that are survivors of domestic violence. It's not just a celebrity shit show, I guess, that you're watching. It's really, this is a real situation where somebody was abused and their life is getting ruined, and you're wondering, like, okay, Team Amber, Team Johnny. And it's not even like, and I hate the fact that people are like, well, Johnny Depp's such a big star, so everybody's automatically going to support him. No, I mean, I was a fan of, I enjoyed his movies, but I wasn't like a diehard fan.
Same.
And initially I believed her when it came out. I was like, oh no, another celebrity, hits women and abuses women, whatever. Brushed it.
2018, the Me Too movement was big there, bright in the spotlight. And it's terrible to see somebody that, that I felt like making comments that people would think were false about something so serious, and her credibility just deteriorating day by day over something so serious and so real to so many people. Right. And this goes past a hashtag Me Too. This goes past like memes on TikTok. Like, this is real people you know.
Well, it shed light on the fact that women can be violent. I mean, I know women, I've seen women fight and they can be violent, but your story resonated with me. And I'm not a fan of the YouTube channel. I just happened to be watching when you were talking. And then I was like, oh my God, that's so true, because this Dr. Hughes was talking about same-sex couples and domestic violence, but they're males. Not ever once mentioning that women also can be perpetrators.
And she only brought up one case in 1998.
One case. I mean, I was offended as a psychologist by her testimony. And here we're saying that Amber Heard is setting women back decades by what she's doing. I think the psychologist, set psychologists back decades, because now when we're speaking, we're going to be questioned. Are we being paid off with our testimony? And I just thought that was awful. But anyway, your situation, it's like, on the one hand, yes, you were living with them in the same building, not living with them, but you were a tenant in the same building
that
they were living in, and you guys interacted with each other. And so you were not aware of any of this going on at that time because nothing was made public. So is all of this triggering things for you as well, not just with your own domestic violence history, but just your interactions living in that building with them?
I think whatever triggers that I've felt or experienced is really more, based on the media and the world and everyone thinking domestic violence automatically means a male abusing a woman. And, in this case, we're going back and forth. And I don't know if Amber's lying. I don't know, I only know Johnny from bumping into him in the elevator a couple of times and seeing him in the building. I saw Amber a lot more than I saw him. But yeah, it was more that's what my trigger was like, why has it been so long that people have been kind of, narrowed vision on just thinking domestic abuse. Right away, you think male abusing woman, and being in same-gender, same-sex relationships and experiencing abuse on many different levels and categories that you know about and speak about. I was like, nobody's talking about that, especially with women. And that's why I wanted to talk to you, because, right now we're getting kind of insight of like, oh, could this be flipped? And what everyone thinks is, abuse in relationships, a man against a woman. And now we're like, oh, looking at, okay, was Johnny Depp abused? But again, that's what my trigger was. I was like, yeah, like, this is a subject that people should hear about and talk about. And it's like dark, hidden, dirty secrets in one way.
And I'm glad that it is shedding the light on the whole men too. Like, men are also victims, and that men are like, God, if Johnny Depp has all this money and all this fame and all these resources, he's having a hard time clearing his name. What chance do I have? I mean, how much money do I need to spend to clear my name? Yeah. But at the same time, your story was interesting to me. Obviously, I don't have experience with same-sex relationships, but I'm sure when there's two women involved, there could be potential for violence, right? If there's somebody is an abusive partner. Tell me a little bit about your experience and what was that like to be in a situation like that? And how long were you in that domestic violence, intimate partner violence situation?
Yeah. Well, I would say out of all of the, types of relationships, male, female, male, male, female, female, I feel is the most discredited and the most dismissed as not taken seriously and not real and not just recognized. Because in my case, I felt like the world would look at what I was going through, dramatic incidents that I was going through, as, oh, it's just two girls fighting. It's a cat fight. It's an argument. Like, how could one woman hurt another woman? Like, there's like, they couldn't it just was never out there, and it still isn't. I so that's why I wanted to speak to you and, you know, be on your podcast, because I was like, people should hear this. To answer your main question, I was single for a long time, maybe 6 years without being in a committed relationship. I mean, maybe 6 years is a long time to some people. For me, at the time, I was in my, you know, early 40s, late 30s. I'm sorry. And I met someone online and quickly got in a relationship. I'd, again, been on my own for a long time. And I met a woman who you know, we met online, and I was very naive to online dating and anything like that. It was the first time I've ever kind of met somebody, not physically, you know, met them. And we had our first date. There was red flags from the first date. There was red flags like, oh, you're going to be dating your father. You know, that thing of like, let me see about this person, what's wrong with them, what I dealt with my whole life in my past, and how I can fix them. Like, you know, a textbook, addict, codependency, all of that. But there was a lot of love, and the love was fast and hard and extreme. It was intense, just like an intent. And because I hadn't been in a relationship for so long, when I did meet this woman, she loved hard. You know, she was super romantic and super, you know, just almost like over the top when it came to the good stuff. But she had a lot of friends. Some of her friends were exes of hers, actually, which was interesting. Like, I don't know if that's like a New York lesbian thing, but like everyone's like friends with her ex. And people actually warned me. They warned me. They said, wow.
Friends warned you?
Her exes.
Her exes warned you?
Her exes and her close friends, and one of her ex-girlfriends that was a close friend actually was like, wow, good on you that you're gonna actually, you know, love this person and take this person on, because she's a lot. And I noticed right away that there were mental health issues and psychological disorders that she had and lived with and experienced. And instead of running from that, I wanted to be that person who understood that person. Do not discriminate. In my mind, do not discriminate about of somebody that has mental health issues. That's right. Real.
Right.
Support somebody if they're bipolar. Support somebody. Meanwhile, I didn't know all of the details of what that entailed, but I kind of was just always protecting her reputation or how people saw her, because I was like, oh, well, you know, people are sick. You know, I have a health condition as well, and that people could discriminate against. I don't know. I have epilepsy, and I suffer from a seizure disorder, and a lot of people don't know about that. So in my mind, I'm like, and that's a neurological disease, obviously not a mental health issue, but it's something that people don't understand. So in my mind, I thought, okay, I'm here for her. Like, I will love her as she loves me back. And I will understand that these mental health experiences, issues, situations that she has is something that people have. And so I'll be that hero. I'll be that one that sticks with her because her exes didn't. So I was very much trying to just save her.
And that's what a lot of people do, especially women. They want to be the one to fix. They want to be the one to support. And and it's not against, I mean, I've done a lot of podcast episodes about we do not want to discriminate against somebody because they have a mental illness, because there's already enough stigma about mental illness that we don't want to say, oh, well, you have this issue. Because I am very open about my anxiety. I would hate for somebody to say, oh, she's got anxiety, I don't want to talk to her.
Sure.
But it's about what we don't understand, and what a lot of women don't take into consideration is they might have a diagnosis of mental illness, but what are they doing about it? Are they making excuses about it? Do they have insight about it? Are they actively working towards healing that or doing something about it? Or are they externally focused and blaming everybody else for their issues? Sure. And so what you were doing in order to protect her was you're making excuses for it, right? You're making, oh, it's because she has this, and that's.
I thought I was like woke, I thought I was evolved in my own, when I say woke, meaning like, oh, I can understand this, but you put that with recognizing from my own eyes, from her friends, from her exes, that she had, multiple mental health illnesses. I'll say, I don't want to say issues, I'll say illnesses. It's an illness. But then you put that with self-medication and self-medicating with substances. And she wasn't a big drinker, but she would take medications when she wanted. Like, she would go to therapy once and then go from a psychologist to a psychiatrist to get a prescription, and whatever that was for ADHD or for bipolar, whatever that was. But she would smoke weed a lot, and like every day, and people don't even look at that as a drug.
Not anymore, yeah.
Or and it is medicinal for many people. Personally, I don't smoke weed, but she definitely smoked every day, and that was something that if we had an argument, she could kind of get away with the fact that, oh, I don't remember I said that, because that's something about, I guess, smoking a lot of weed that people have like short-term memory loss or something. So that really affected our argument, because it whether you think it's a substance or medicinal or whatever, you're still physically altered in some way. And I have no judgment of anyone. I don't have judgment of anyone that does any substance, like, to each its own. I just know my personal experience with an abusive ex that self-medicated in a couple of different ways, but that was one of them. And it was very convenient to not remember what she said or not have recollection of certain arguments because she was stoned.
Right. I mean, we're seeing there's a lot of evidence of Johnny Depp, for example, that he admits, I have an addiction. And he said, the only person I've ever abused is myself with my addictions. Not everybody that has a substance abuse disorder is abusive. Yeah. But one thing you did say is your love was fast and hard. And that's a narcissistic relationship right there, where there's a lot of love bombing going on. And then later on, there's a lot of gaslighting going on, right? Like, you're making stuff up that didn't really happen, minimizing what happened. And what a lot of victims don't understand is this cycle of, I mean, there's a reason a lot of women don't leave such abusive relationships, or it takes them a long time, because it starts out slow. It might start out with hurting your feelings with their words. It might start out with little lies, and then escalates to physical violence. But there's always that reconnection where there's flowers and candy and I love you and I will never do this again. Oh, and then you fall right back into that cycle again, and it just keeps getting deeper and deeper.
Yeah. I mean, she wanted to spend the rest of her life with me. She at one point proposed to me to get engaged. I was like, well, I'm not ready for that. I didn't say, no, I'm not going to marry you, because then we would break up, and I didn't want to hurt her and hurt her feelings and send her spiraling. But that was how over the top, romantic that she wanted to be. I didn't see her. I saw little bouts of crazy. And now again, we had first started dating weeks, and then that's when I met her friends, and one of her friends was her ex-girlfriend for like many years, and they were all giving me warnings. And with my relationship with this woman, it was like, it started with a little bit of jealousy and possessiveness first. She wanted to spend so much time with me, and she wanted to move in with me. I had a beautiful apartment in New York, and not saying that her place was like a live work space, but right away she saw where I was living, and she wanted to move in, and all of this. She just wanted to move really fast on everything, but she was so intense, and I had so many people literally tell me, this woman's not good for you. This is, get out, be careful. And usually friends don't even do that because they don't want to, get involved or make you upset. But I literally had people saying, girl, no, like, get out. This person is not right. And I still felt like, well, I can heal her, or I will be her, I am the person that will understand her and love her, even with her mental illness. But when the rage started, that's when I understood what I was really in. And she had rage, screaming, punching, breaking things, manipulate. I mean, it got to a place that I thought, this is like a movie, but I'm in the movie and no one's seeing it. I'm the one in it, but there is no audience. There is no one else seeing how crazy this is.
But even then you start to doubt yourself, like, maybe I said something to create that rage. Maybe if I dress nicer, or if I make breakfast, or if I'm kinder, if I'm a little gentler, if I love harder, this will stop, right? And that's what and I want to say women, because we tend to be the nurturing, giving part of a relationship, and we kind of mold ourselves in relationships, right? So we feel like, if I love hard enough, if I do more, then I can make them stop, not realizing it has nothing to do with you. And even though people are warning you, you're still thinking, yeah, they might see that, but I know her better, and I know I can do better.
One of the things that triggered me, just watching the trial with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, like, I started watching it like everyone else was watching it, and of course I was like, oh, I live in the same building they live. And in the very, very beginning of the trial, when he was talking about how he used to escape and leave fights and hide and just get away, and then I was like, that's me. That was me. I always would exit the situation. I would go walk my dog. I would just get away, because she loved fighting. She loved the violent screaming, throwing glasses, punching walls, just this like heightened rage that I've never experienced. So I would just leave. Because I'm not that person who is going to be like, yeah, you know what? Like, I that's not who I am. And there were times in my relationship that I did things that I just never thought I would do. At one point, there was two incidences that I could tell you about. I'll probably tell a lot about my kind of how I dealt with this. She had moved in with me so she could sublet her apartment. and make money on her apartment sublet and then live with me. But she didn't really want to pay rent half with me. She just wanted to kind of, and her thing was like, well, you make more money than me, so, you know, you can't charge me rent and whatever. So she was living with me and she had keys, obviously. And I lived in a building in New York that had, I'm gonna say where I lived, but I had a you know, concierge and a staff and a doorman, and there was a lot of people there. There were certain celebrities that lived in that building, so it was definitely very protected and you know, secure place. And there was a fight one night that I just didn't know where to go. It was 11 or midnight. And I just remember walking around downtown Manhattan, just looking for somewhere to go. And I found I was like, where can I go where she won't find me? She would block me from the door. I would try to leave and she would physically block the door so I couldn't leave, because she would say, like, don't run away from this fight. Like, don't run away from me. You're, you know, taking the easy way out, or you're walking away. And I remember finding the most random, like, Irish pub bar, like a dude's, I don't know, it was like a dive bar kind of thing. And I just was walking around, and I found this place that I thought, well, this is the most random hole in the wall, New York place that's not hip, you know, so that I could go and hide. And I just remember it was winter. I ran out of there so fast. I don't even know if I put a coat on. And I just was walking around the streets, and there was just that moment of like, what am I doing? Oh, I'm doing something good. I'm walking away from the situation. I'm exiting the situation so it doesn't escalate again. I remember going to this weird bar, and I hid out for hours, just sitting there at a bar. That was like the most random hole in the wall place. And that was, you know, and she was texting. And I was actually shaking. I was physically shaking because I was so terrified that she would find me, that I had to hide in a neighborhood where I knew she wouldn't find me.
I mean, at least you had the anonymity that you could go to a bar. Johnny Depp would go into the many rooms in these, either the lofts or his house, trying to hide, and he couldn't shake her because he couldn't go to a bar and hide. Everybody would know,
Yeah.
right? And that's what he kept saying, like, I'm trying to do the right thing and not get involved in this altercation because I am a man. I put my hands on her, I probably will get arrested. So I want to get away from the situation. She's coming right back at him, and you're trying to do the same thing. And Dr. Curry did an amazing job explaining this deep, deep insecurity that gets triggered when you're leaving a fight and they don't get to have that final say. They feel abandoned. That abandonment gets triggered. And so it does create this deep rage and this lashing out, kind of like putting a wild animal in a corner, right? And so you're on the receiving end of that. How do you come back home from that? I mean, you're shaking in this bar. How do you go back home?
I waited hours and hours. I thought maybe she would calm down, go to sleep, leave. I had kept telling her, like, go back to your own apartment. I did go back that night, and I got in and just crawled into bed and rolled on my side and put the blanket on over my head. And like, I literally like cocooned myself so that I couldn't be touched. There was another incident that I remember clearly within my building where we had a fight. She was always instigating. It's like things would come out of nowhere and they would go from 0 to 100. You know, it was just all of a sudden she'd be screaming. And I remember being like, what, like, is that like, do you feel better now? Do you feel better? Are you an opera singer? Like, do you feel better? I'm going to get kicked out of this apartment. my neighbors will hear you. Like, you don't even live here legally. Like, this is crazy. Like, she was screaming. And I had a gym in the building, and in the kind of locker room, dressing room area, we had a pool and a gym. And I went down there to hide from her, and I hid in a sauna. I shut the heat off, but I shut all the lights off in this, changing room where people would change to go to the gym or the pool. I shut all the lights off. I went into a sauna room, this little room, shut the lights off, and I sat there huddling and just thinking, well, she can't find me here. That's how I was like, I'm going to hide somewhere where she wouldn't find me. And after about half hour, 45 minutes, the door opened and she found me.
Oh my gosh. That must have been terrifying.
It was.
Now, did you reach out to your friends or even her ex-girlfriends and say, what the heck, is this how she was with you? I mean, did you ever tell anybody, say anything?
I said things to my doorman or my concierge and the doorman who lived there. I said, I'm breaking up with her. I want my keys back. It's my place. It's my lease. I was like, please don't let her in. She's dangerous. Mm. And they were like, oh, we saw her and, she, oh, blah, blah, blah. And nobody took her keys back because they thought, oh, they're just in an argument. Like, we're not going to get involved. They're just girls having a fight. So she continued to have, it was just, I was just completely not taken seriously. And it was just, nobody would believe me. So I just stopped trying to tell people. I literally just wanted, and I had thought about a restraining order at one point because I thought, well, that would be a legal way for her to, but I didn't go through with it. I didn't go through with, the legalities of it. My sister, actually, who I'm very close with, who I love, she saw a side to my ex that was like, something's off.
Was there any physical evidence of the abuse?
The abuse was, she never hit me, but she would throw things and throw things at me, punch walls. She would try to hurt herself. She would threaten suicide a lot. And she had rage. She would get up in my face right here and scream to the fact that I was like vibrating in this white fear that would come up, in me. And then putting that with kind of the possessiveness and needing to talk to me and see me every day, every hour, every text, it was just all encompassing. And we went through a few things where we had to be together. There was a natural disaster, a hurricane that happened, and we had Hurricane Sandy that happened in New York. Wow. And I had no electricity and heat and water and whatnot. It was like, if you know about Hurricane Sandy.
Oh, I do remember, yeah.
It was, and I'm living downtown. And there was buildings that were under 8 feet of water.
I remember that.
So we were together, and it was this, like, we're survivors, we're sticking together. It was like this intense bonding time because we were going through something together. And I almost feel like she used that as a way to take advantage of an opportunity to prove our bond. Because we could go through a tough time together and make it out on the other end.
You mentioned the fact that you weren't necessarily hit, but the experience was still traumatic. I mean, I've never been hit in a domestic violence situation, but the fear is still there. The gaslighting is there. The trauma.
She put her hands on me. She did put her hands on me. She would grab my shoulders and shake me. And her thing was like to pull me close to her into our face so that she could scream. I mean, it was like a monster. It was like a horror movie. So she never punched me, but she would throw things, and then she would grab me by the shoulders and she would just want me right up in her face and just scream at the top of her lungs and shake me and hold me. And it and we were pretty equal in stature, I would say, like in height and whatnot. Maybe she was a little bit shorter than I was, a little bit but similar physical builds, which is another reason I almost feel like outsiders would never think like, oh, you could be in an abusive relationship with another woman.
Right. And that's really sad that nobody believed you. But I know for me personally, I felt a lot of shame for being in a situation like that. Like I didn't see myself ever being the type of woman that could be verbally abused, that could be humiliated, that could be treated so badly. And I was a lot of shame to actually tell anybody. It's not that I guess I could have. It's not that nobody would have believed me. Maybe nobody would have believed me, but I was embarrassed to admit that I was in a situation like that.
That's how I was. I felt completely embarrassed. So I really hid that from people. And even people who could see, I really put it, no. I was embarrassed because I was like, how am I in this so deep with somebody so just all over the place? When it got really bad, it got bad. She threw a glass coffee table. I was at her place with my dog and her dog. And my dog is very sensitive. But she was having a rage fit in anger. She would have these just outbursts. She would just, out of nowhere, she would just, scream. And she threw a coffee table, heavy glass coffee table, literally across the room. And just that violence, and I was just shaking and so, wow, this is real. Like this is happening. I remember seeing my dog hiding under a table, just under a chair. I'm sorry, just shaking and terrified. And I was like, oh, he's like my child, I was like, this is my dog, this is my baby. And it took me looking at him to realize like, this is not okay. And so towards the end of our relationship, the biggest battle I had was I kept trying to leave. I kept trying to break up with her. Mm-hmm. I said, like, this is over. This is not happening. It's gone too far. Mm-hmm. We're breaking up. I'm leaving. And she wouldn't let me psychologically, emotionally, physically holding me to the point where if we had to have a conversation, I would make sure it was in a public space, like a park or a cafe or something, because I knew that, I would be safe. Mm-hmm. And this is someone I was in a relationship with that I just wanted to say, this could not go on. Mm-hmm. But I had to like meet her places like parks.
Was she still living with you at that time?
She lived with me. I can't remember how many months, but at one point, the person that she was subletting her place to had to move out. So she went back to her own place. And it was also because I was like, I need a little bit of space. Our relationship will be better that we're not, on top of each other all the time. There's just too many fights. So I didn't kick her out, although I guess I wanted to, or I wanted to say like, leave. But circumstances just lined up to the fact that she was going to have an empty apartment that she was subletting. And so she was going to go back there and use it as her workspace again.
So how long did it take you to actually break up for good?
I had a job in California. I worked as a costume designer, and I had kind of transitioned from doing costume design from live events and dance and circus and performing to doing film and television. It's almost like two separate careers. And I was almost 40, and I said, I want to try this. I want to try doing costume design for film. It's very different. It's a very different type of work. And so I got my first movie, the first job I ever had. They paid me nothing, and I was like, I don't care. I just give me a chance, you know. And I was 39, I guess, 49 now. But I came out to LA to do this movie, and they flew me and my assistant and another person. And we came out here to shoot this like cool post-apocalyptic movie. It was like my first sci-fi. Like I didn't even know anything about the film industry, but I was like, this is amazing. And my ex was in her hyper obsessive space, where she would be like obsessive compulsive. She would send me 30 texts a day, 40 texts a day, just constant. And I was like, hey, I'm working. And I really realized, like, when I came out to LA, I was like, wow, I love this. Like, I could leave New York. Like, I could have a life here. Like, this is incredible. I'm going to finally just kind of follow my dreams, midlife crisis, whatever you want to call it. But I wanted to kind of change careers. It changed careers within my career as a costume designer. And I came out here, and the people around me that I was working with were like, that's not normal. That is not normal. Your phone doesn't stop ringing. You're crying. You're like, she's just obsessively calling me. So when I went back to New York, I said, hey, I want to move to LA. Like, this is great. And her career wasn't really, I don't want to say too much details, but we didn't work in the same industry. And I really wanted that support from her to say, like, I got your back. Like, let's do this. Like, this, you believe in that. I mean, the couples do that all the time. If one person wants to go to college, or if one person in the relationship gets a job in another country, like you make compromises. So I thought there was a chance to make a compromise. And when I got back to New York, she was watching my dog, you know, at her place while I was here doing my first movie. And I got back, and in my mind, I wanted to have this conversation to say, like, I'm going to pursue my career, my dream to, you know, do costumes in film. Would you be up for it? Like, let's do this. Like, let's move to LA. Let's work it out. And she absolutely was not. She was so angry that when I got back, my flight was a late flight, and I went to her place because my dog was there instead of going to my place. And I crawled into bed, and she gave me a lot of like, I love you, and I'm so happy you're home. And then I got a text message on my phone, and I was just going to put my phone down. And she came over, like, she went from like, I'm so happy you're back, baby. You know, we miss you. Blah, blah, blah. And I just got a text message, and I didn't even look at it. And she grabbed my phone, and then she chucked it at me. And I think she broke my phone, but she just went from like to who's calling, who's texting, da, 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 da. And then and I just hid in her bed, like curled up the same way I did in my own bed, just waiting for her to calm down, waiting for her to stop. And in the morning, I realized my only way to like get out was to kind of pretend like everything was okay. Because all the other times I tried to break up with her, she would physically stop me, like physically hold me. You're not leaving me. You're not, you know, or the calling. So I think she was onto it. I think she realized I was putting on, you know, okay, let's go get a coffee. And she said, oh, okay. why don't you wait here? I'll go in and get the coffee, like at a Starbucks. And she had my dog, again, who is like my son, like my child, like he's my love. And she wouldn't let go of him.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm waiting there. And she takes the dogs, her dog and my dog, inside. And I'm waiting outside. And I'm like, this is weird. Like, let me go after and say that it didn't make sense to me. I was like, no, you go in and get the coffee. I'll wait outside with the dogs. Like, why are you grabbing him away from me? And she knew that I was going to try to break up with her because of the night before throwing the phone and, you know, the violence and the screaming and the arguing. So it's so crazy when I think back. So I had to wait till she came out, and she had her hands full with 2 coffees, and I was there like smiling for her to come out. And I literally grabbed the leash of my dog and she pulled him back. She was basically trying to, you know, she had said the night before that like he was living with her. And I was like, okay, no, that's my dog. Like she like it was hers kind of, because she took care of him for the 2 weeks I was in LA working on the movie. And that was the last time I had to actually physically run. And it was just the most surreal moment that I had to, you know, grab my dog away from her that she was holding as like collateral or as a negotiation like to kidnap him so that I wouldn't try to break up with her again or stay. And I grabbed his leash and I just ran like hell. I just ran and ran and ran. I guess I got on the subway and got home and told friends of ours, please do not let her get to my house. Told the doorman, you know, told people, do not let her in. I had to call her friends, actually, because they knew, you know. But it was just like, it was so surreal. I think back talking to you about it. I haven't talked about it, you know, to anyone or very few people, but it's like a movie. Like I'm like, how did my life get that crazy? How did I get wrapped up into this abusive, psychologically abusive relationship with this intense jealousy and this intense manipulation? And I mean, she tried to kidnap my dog so that I wouldn't break up with her. And I had to run. I had to run like somebody was coming after me to kill me, run down the street to get away from her.
That's terrifying. I'm surprised you haven't talked to anybody. You haven't gone to therapy or done any of this work after you left that relationship?
I mean, not formal therapy. I have told some of the stories to certain friends of mine, but not in the way that they would kind of understand it, which is why I'm grateful to have this opportunity with you, doctor. You know, it's hard to talk about because I'm still scared.
Yeah.
I'm still scared. She stalked me for a very long time.
Yeah.
She stalked me for about six years. Wow. After I ran away from her, I ended up moving to LA and she continued to stalk me.
How is this? Is there any fear of you being known now, being on YouTube, being on this podcast? Are you afraid that this is going to reignite that relationship or any fears that's associated with that?
There is, because it's maybe only, 5 years ago or something or 4 years ago that she did appear again and continued to text me. And I never, ever, ever responded. I didn't respond to one message since that one day. And she continued over years and years and years. And one day, a few years ago, I got a message from her with a photograph, a selfie in front of my building.
Oh my gosh.
So not New York, in LA.
Right.
3,000 miles away. And I had to tell my, my staff, if they see her, not to let her in. And our building is very secure. I'm so grateful for that. And there's actually like a wall behind the front desk that has photos of people that could possibly be dangerous or stalkers, or, because people like Johnny Depp lived here. There's like a stalker wall, I guess. And I had to show her picture to the people that worked here and just say, like, I'm terrified and this woman might try to come in, and I'm scared, and make sure that she doesn't manipulate you or say that a friend lives here. And, so now at this point, I'm like talking to you and this could be out. But I'm not doing anything wrong about talking about it.
You're not at all.
Not,
I mean,
yeah.
I think I shared with you that I personally, like, even though my situation was very short term, it affected me for 10 years where I was kind of living a very quiet, anonymous life. And I could have like promoted myself online. I didn't. I was so terrified of anything like coming back at me. And then one day I just said, enough. I'm not going to live in fear. I just cannot live like that. I cannot allow this person to continue to live rent free in my heart and in my mind and control me still. And so I hope to God that that's exactly where you end up with, where you're no longer being controlled by this fear and that you have your resources. I mean, seeing somebody like Johnny Depp, who has so much to lose, stand up and just show the dirty, ugly, messy side of his life. And there's this outpouring of love. I mean, people are waiting 2 days in advance. Like, I heard that there are people there from yesterday, 7 a.m, trying to get into today's trial.
To the court.
Because they love him so much for being honest and open. And that's what we don't realize, that when we share our story, when we talk about the trauma, it no longer has that hold over us. But if we keep it hidden and we keep shoving it in and allowing it to fester, it ends up getting bigger than it is.
Yeah.
And I've been in this situation like twice in my life where I've gotten to the point of like, I don't care. I have nothing to lose. Bring it on.
Yeah.
And so it just is like, you're sick of it. You're sick of living in fear. You're sick of living the small life when you could be opening yourself up to so much more. And I hope
for too long, like afraid that if I said something negative about her to someone that she would find out and like try to sue me for slander or defamation or something, like, whatever. But I mean, something that I'm so grateful for you having me talk with you and having me on your podcast is really, I hope people watching this trial, opening their minds, not opening, you know what I mean? Like being open to hearing stories of domestic abuse, not just male or female, but other relationships, and talk to your friends and say, like, who do you know that's in a same-sex relationship? Who do you know that's in a lesbian female-female relationship that's been taken seriously when it's come to this type of domestic abuse, violence, psychological abuse, emotional abuse? Because it's hidden and people don't take women seriously. And especially two women, they don't take it seriously.
Shame. Right. And there's too much shame to even say anything. Like culturally, I'm Muslim. And so there are a lot of women that go to non-Muslim mental health professionals. They're afraid to say that they're victims of domestic abuse because they don't want the whole religion to be painted as, well, you're in a Muslim relationship.
It's their fault. Yeah.
Right. It's because you're Muslim, you're in this abusive relationship. So they don't say anything either. And if you're a lesbian, you don't want to say it either because and I think this happened with Amber Heard and her ex-wife or girlfriend or whatever that she abused, and people didn't take them seriously.
Yeah.
That she is bragging about how they dropped the case because they didn't take it seriously. But that doesn't take away the fact that the girl did get hit, right?
Yeah.
So I know that you also had some personal contact with some of the characters that have come up in this trial. Like Isaac Baruch and Alejandro Romero, right?
Yeah.
How well did you know them, or did you ever interact with them at all?
Yeah, I just saw Alex like 10 minutes ago or an hour ago, but right before, yeah, I just saw Alex right before I got on the Zoom with you.
Well, he
I
was
love him.
hilarious with his driving and vaping, but
And you know what? Like Alex, I love him. We literally just saw him a few minutes ago, and or right before we jumped on. Literally, I was coming up to, and he's just real. He and I are cut from the same cloth. Like we don't, you know what? There's nothing to hide. There's no facade, and he's real. And a lot of people gave him backlash, like, "Oh, that was an unprofessional testimony." And then he went back on social media and said, "Look, they're not paying me. Like, I'm just who I am." And he is who he is, and he wasn't working on the nights of any of those incidences, and so that was why it was kind of really invasive for him that they subpoenaed him to testify because he's worked here so long. But the nights that the cops came for that incident, he wasn't even working. So a lot of people gave him a lot of like drama, and I was like, he doesn't deserve that.
no, all I got from was how much they love him.
I will say, you asked about some other characters. Isaac, love him so much. Love him so much. I think he and my father, I think we were talking about New York. I grew up in New York. My father grew up in Brooklyn. I think him and my father grew up in the same neighborhood or something. But he was always, hanging out at the cafe downstairs, and he would show me pictures on his phone of his artwork and his paintings he was working on, and just a real cool guy and a real cool person. And it sucked that he, had to move. All of a sudden, all of this happened, and Johnny had to move, and Amber moved, and and Isaac was living here, having an art studio and painting. And for people to think somebody like that was like a freeloader living here, it's like, no, Johnny was his patron. Like Johnny was supporting him as an artist. Mm-hmm. It's not like Isaac was some bum who, was trying to get, and, on the contrary, she had everyone in her life living in these penthouses for free. Right. And Johnny was really generous with that. So it really bummed me out when I spoke to him before he moved, and he was just like, yeah, I gotta move. And I'm like, where are you going? You going back to New York? What are you doing? And he was just like, it was all just kind of abrupt. He didn't have a choice about it, Mm-hmm. But there was a very cool person. Yeah. Alex, they call him Alejandro. His real name is, everyone calls him Alex. The coolest person ever. Love him so much.
So how credible would you say their testimony is, given that they are just genuine people? It seems like there's so much love, outpouring of love for both of them on YouTube and social media.
Well, they are credible because they're real people. And, if after today, if Amber is really lying about her abuse with doctored photos or makeup or claiming certain things, because none of the story was lining up today. It was just all over the place. There was pictures, there were shadows, there was under the cheekbone, over the cheekbone. There was some photos that she said, oh, this was taken before, during, and after the cops were here, something like that. But the photos were like with, and I know the penthouses. I've been in the penthouses, and I know where there's a lot of windows, there's a lot of light, but the cops were there at 11:30 at night. So
there's a lot of like artificial lighting going on there, yeah.
So I was like, were these photos taken the next day? Were they?
And you had mentioned in on the YouTube interview with the Popcorn Planet about the bruising with the pool doors, right? And that showed up today. And how she's like, I was punched multiple times.
Okay, I literally had those two bruises. I don't know if that's how she got it, but if I had ever taken a photo of my arms, it's identical. They're these really, really heavy iron doors, and there's like a weird edge kind of thing, and you need a key to get in and out. And there was one time where I opened the door and it kind of pushed me. Like I don't weigh that much. I'm pretty small, and the door pushed me, and I had bruises here and here.
Oh,
And some girl I was dating at the time, short term relationship, also very jealous. She accused me of being grabbed and having some rough, And I was like, no, it's but I don't know. Like that bruise did not look like arm print. Whatever it is with the photos and the bruises, and if she is lying about this, it is absolutely horrific. But it just, why did she video and audio and record and take photos of everything?
Everything but the abuse.
But that's the part that I'm like, it just seems so premeditated. And that's the part that I'm like, wait, what? Even phone calls where she's talking to other people and talking to him, it's like you need a second phone to be recording you talking to someone else. Like, or photos that were taken after her phone was thrown out the window. It's like, well, like there's so many little details. And when I watch the case, I'm interested because I'm like, if she's really making up all of these lies, how does that reflect on women, people of domestic abuse? To have somebody who's in the that can get away with creating these crazy stories. So,
or even being premeditated or meditative about the collecting evidence. I mean, that can be so damaging. And it does set us back. We already are at a disadvantage that people, when we do come forward, we're not taken as seriously. Yeah. And then with this whole Me Too movement, initially there were like really real claims of Bill Cosby, Harvey Weinstein or whatever. And then there were other cases that came out that there was no substance, but people were taking advantage of the movement, right? And that kind of stuff really bothers me. But I want to encourage all victims, regardless of same-sex relationship, heterosexual relationships, men, women, whatever, it doesn't matter, to feel free to be able to talk about it and be believed. So given everything, looking back on your past relationship, what would you do differently? Are you in a place where you can actually spot the red flags now? Are you in a place that you can actually identify that and be able to make different decisions? Or what would you do differently?
I mean, I think it's, each relationship, you learn from the last, and there's always going to be parts of me that have the damage from my childhood, and I had abuse in my childhood, and I had parents of substance abuse and addicts, and rage and all of those things. So of course that's why it was, very easy for me and comfortable for me to do that. But I think I'm at a place now in my life, like with COVID and lockdown, just being alone, like totally alone, for a couple of years. But I feel like I'm in a place now that I really want to talk about things that I'm talking about with you right now to other people and potential partners. And I do have somebody special in my life that I love very much. And I hope I can get over my own guarded. I'm hoping I can really take off this armor for her sake and for our relationship, because it's worth it. But it's a journey. It's always a journey.
I mean, I would highly encourage therapy, not only individual, but also couples, so that if this relationship is really important to you, going to a couples therapist and really talking about your own issues, your own triggers, so that she understands what you're coming from and what you're dealing with and knows how to be supportive of you. And then also, hopefully, for you to be able to spot any red flags that are coming up, whether from the relationship or within your own self, so that you're not, because it's true, when we have a history of abuse as children, when we have already been traumatized, we're much more likely to gravitate towards people that are abusive. it's almost like they can see that in you and they can groom you and identify that. And then
Yeah.
you go to them like a moth to a flame because
Sure.
it's familiar. Not that you want it,
Yeah.
but it's
Which is
familiar.
why I need to get over my shit, because I do know someone who's amazing, and instead of going for that, it's almost like I'm waiting for like what's wrong with her, you know? And
But you can
yeah,
sabotage it because of your own issues. That's what I'm
I don't
saying.
want to sabotage it. No, for sure. It's hard to just get to that place where I can be loved without the fear. I
Yeah.
guess, you know, there was something that I was reading about, um, psychology of, you know, relationships, and people who have intimacy fear of intimacy, or who are also introverted. And I'm definitely very much an introvert and love being alone. I always talk about all my past relationships that I complain about. These women, she cheated on me, she was a jerk, she was crazy. I was like, all of those women have one thing in common: me. I'm what's in common with them. I always need alone time.
Yeah.
I really do. And I was reading this article, and it really rang a bell with me, because it was like, people always say, like, you don't want to grow old alone. You don't want to die alone. You don't want to be older and be by yourself. You want a partner.
Like you
And
should
there
be
was
afraid of being alone.
and there was something in me that was like, oh my God, that's like my dream. Are you kidding me? Like, that would be amazing to not have to be tied down, or have to like give my energy to someone else. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good thing. But then I realized, I was like, okay, fear of intimacy, that is a real thing. That's a
Definitely.
real thing.
And being an introvert is a real thing. It's the goal is to be in your own bubble
Oh
while
yeah.
sharing your space with somebody else, and then asking for that alone time. Like I just need to go off on my own and recharge my batteries, because that is the difference between an extrovert and an introvert.
Oh yeah.
Introverts get depleted really easily with their energy, so they have to
Oh,
constantly
totally.
cultivate that. Yeah.
I love being alone. I love being alone. Um, but I don't want to be looked at as a weirdo from the other norm, you know, not normal, but, you know, the other people who subscribe to the let's look for my happily ever after mate to stay, you know. And I love being alone for a lot of reasons. It energizes me, and I get to recharge my batteries. I'm an artist too, so my mind is always going. Um, and maybe being epileptic has something to do with that too. Like, I physically need to not be overstimulated
Mhm.
for my neurological health. But yeah, that was one of those things of like, wow, I know somebody now who is we have been friends for about a year, and we want to just be comfortable with being more than friends. And it's terrifying, because there's so far nothing wrong with her. But we not nothing wrong, you know what I mean? Like, there's I haven't had the um terror of the red flags. It's like, here's somebody that wants to love me, and in my mind I'm like, okay, I still just need to be alone. And it's really awesome that she loves that and respects that about me. And there's no thought of smothering or anything. And we can go days even without seeing each other or talking. And I need to nurture my introvert self. Like, I can't just say like, oh, there's something wrong with me that I need so much alone time. It's like, I need to take care of me in
And
that way.
that's so important. I do this marriage course, and we talk about that for a lot of these women that feel like when I meet somebody, it has to be butterflies and nervousness and just fireworks. You experienced all of that and you saw how that ended, right? And so we're trying to tell people, find the one that makes you feel calm, makes you feel
Yes.
peaceful, even if it's boring, because then it's not triggering you that need for conflict and drama and chaos in you, because that could be a better option for you than somebody that's so passionate so quickly, because that fades really fast, or it could become explosive
Oh
really.
yeah. And I'm in the opposite kind of relationship situation now, where it's been like a year in the making. But something that I think about every day, and also this very amazing, beautiful person that's in my life right now, we talk about every day is we talk about joy. We talk about the word joy and what joy is, and living with joy.
And also, there's something special about being with your best friend.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that.
I hope that this relationship does become a safe place for you to be. And like I said, I would definitely encourage you to go towards like maybe doing some not premarital counseling, but you know what I'm saying? Like some kind of counseling where you guys are talking about these relationship issues and goals and what you want to work on and how to have that deep relationship. And then also,
I need like a mantra. I need something that tells me every day, get out of your own way. Like, Amy, get out of your own way. Like I create these obstacles and these barriers so that I can't fully be in an intimate relationship because of so much past trauma. So I need like a hammer for the to break down that wall, or something to remind myself. I don't know.
Well, it starts with you not having any fear or guilt about talking about your experience. You're not saying anything about anybody else. This isn't a defamation issue because you're talking about your personal experience. Yeah. I think what's different between Amber is she was really using his name to promote a movie or to whatever, give herself credibility. Talking about your own abuse and your own experience, that nobody can take that away from you. This is your experience. And so talking about it as much as possible is the first step towards healing. I know journaling really, really helped me getting over, like talking about the fears I had, talking about what was standing in my own way, how I created ways to protect myself. You know how they say, like, if you've been sexually abused at a really young age, you might end up putting on a lot of weight to create this barrier. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't always look like a fat suit for us, right? Sometimes it could be how we live our lives so that we're not putting ourselves out there. We're not taking the risks. We're not wanting that attention because we're living in fear. And not living in fear is so empowering. I mean, obviously, fear is there for a reason. I don't want to say that we shouldn't have fear. Right. We shouldn't have irrational fear, right? Mm-hmm. And also just having a support system. The more you talk about it, the more people know your story, the more you can have that protectiveness around you. Yeah. Telling the people in the front of your building, or the doorman and the people that greet people, don't let these people in. Calling the police if you have to. Just knowing what are my resources? Yeah. Where's my support system? How can I speak up? And I really want to emphasize this for whoever is dealing with any kind of domestic violence, whether that's mental, physical, emotional. It doesn't always have to be black eyes. It doesn't have to be broken noses. Oh yeah. It can really be psychological.
Intimidation is a devastating form of abuse.
Right. And I know it's terrifying to even think about leaving this person because of what could happen afterwards, but you're never going to know until you call the police. So lean on your support system, because one thing they do, and I don't know if this happened to you, a lot of these relationships, they isolate you. And this is what happened with Johnny Depp. All of a sudden, all her friends move in the building and he has no one, right? And I noticed that with myself, that I was all of a sudden isolated completely. And then I was ashamed to talk about it. And the more I allowed that isolation to continue, the more I allowed the shame to take over, I continued to be trapped in that situation. So speak up, talk about it, break free from that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy you reached out to me. Like it's so, freeing to talk about things that I don't talk about, and like sharing things virtually right now has been something that I never did, and it's like new to me, and it feels really good to still be able to be that introvert and be home and be able to not be around all the noise and the people, but also have like really great interactions with sharing with people. And I'm so grateful that you reached out to me, because you just made me so comfortable talking about some really deep things that I've been too afraid to talk about. Thank you.
Don't let it be buried.
Continue working on myself every day.
Oh, it should be a lifelong goal. I mean, I feel like that's the way it is for me. And that's what we need to do, constantly grow and peel those layers back and heal and be at a place that, this is the beauty of, you're talking about, you're almost 49, or you are 49, I don't know.
Yeah.
That as we get older, we don't care so much, right?
Oh, totally. Totally. I used to care what people thought about me so much. Yeah. And it's such a freeing feeling to just not care about that, and just to be who I am. You like me, you don't like me, like, again, live in your joy. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. It's just like a really beautiful, magical moment that you reached out to me, because I didn't know that I needed you in that moment. But like I said, I listened to one of your podcasts, and it was like bells, like the what about fears and anxiety? I was like, ding, ding. I was like, that's me. That's me. I was like, oh, like I had like four of the fears on there. And I was like, oh, wow. This is an incredibly smart, amazing doctor. And I want to know you. And so I'm glad that I could have, shared some of my life with you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time. And I look forward to talking to you again, hopefully soon.
Okay, great. Well, have a good night.
You too. Thank you again.
Okay. Bye.
That was so brave of Amy to share her story for the first time here with us. Healing starts with sharing our stories and talking about it, writing about it, and going to therapy to process about it. There's no reason to live in fear and shame when you've done nothing wrong. You're a victim of violence and survived it. Now you can start healing and putting it all behind you. Please reach out for support and start building a better life for yourself. You can move forward regardless of how traumatic your past. Get help from trauma-trained mental health professionals and allow yourself time to heal. You deserve better. To learn more about Amy, please visit transforminganxiety.com/50. If you enjoyed this episode of the Mental Health Break podcast, please be sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and share this episode with your friends and family. Until next time.